Officials estimate that 80% of New Orleans is now underwater, and this afternoon that water was still rising. Helicopters spent the day on a virtual house-to-house search from the air. Coast Guard choppers hovered over houses and delicately lowered rescue baskets, winching stranded survivors one by one.
Environmental issues like hurricanes have a direct impact on society. To gain a better understanding of the relationship between climate change and its social impacts, we interviewed Chief Leonard Papania of the Gulfport, Mississippi Police Department.
One of the interesting things is most of us weren't prepared to be wiped out.
Right.
And when you're not prepared for that, imagine where you live. It's tomorrow waking up and it's a third world country.
Right.
There's no power, no running water, a tremendous amount of damage. For some of our officers, it took 2 or 3 days for them to navigate back into our city because of fallen trees, damaged lines.
Environmental disasters reach far into our communities. For instance, in the days and weeks following Katrina, an interesting shift in criminal activity occurred.
Your bigger crimes didn't occur because people were devastated, but looting took place right away.
Right.
Now, you probably remember as a kid watching TV.
Oh, absolutely.
In New Orleans. We had it here. But one of the things, and it was really interesting because, your first few days they're looting for TVs, later watches. 3 and 4 days later, they were looting for food. He had a big sack of food, and there was a lot of meat in it. And I remember when I apprehended him, there was a restaurant, a Chinese restaurant that was feeding people for free. So I took the food he stole and gave it to them.
Okay.
And then I realized that I was stuck with a kid.
Right.
And food. And so we ended up, my house had flooded, but it's not all the way up. So I took a boat from my house. We emptied out my cabins. We were not wasting our time with people that were trying to survive.
Even though it's been 10 years since Katrina hit, it continues to impact the everyday lives of those who experienced its devastation.
There's not a day you don't ride through your city, and everything is, and I can't remember a day not having a conversation about the effects of Katrina. I don't know, it's post-traumatic or whatever, but we all, you find 5 people on the coast talking in 10 minutes, something about Katrina.
Hurricane Katrina completely devastated the Gulf Coast, but what does this have to do with climate change? To understand this, let's take a step back and look at how hurricanes form.
In general, there are 3 basic ingredients needed to form a hurricane: warm water, wind, and the Coriolis effect. When warm ocean air evaporates, the water molecules attach themselves to dust particles in the atmosphere, forming clouds. This cycle repeats until enough clouds are formed to create thunderstorms. As warm water evaporates to form clouds, more warm water replaces it on the ocean's surface. The rising air creates a pocket of low pressure above the ocean surface, allowing even more air to move upward, causing more clouds, resulting in a positive feedback loop where warm ocean surfaces and low pressure above the ocean surface continue to contribute to the growth of the storm. As the storm grows, the Coriolis effect takes hold. Just as planes moving from the equator to the North Pole are deflected to the right, so are tropical storms. The low-pressure area in the center of the storm, called the eye, is surrounded by air with a higher pressure. As the higher pressure air rushes into the lower pressure eye, it is deflected by the Coriolis effect, causing a counterclockwise spin in Katrina's case. Now that we understand more about how hurricanes form, it is easy to understand why Katrina was so devastating. Katrina formed like any other hurricane. When it passed by Florida, it was only a Category 1 storm. But in the 3 days before it hit New Orleans, something interesting happened. When Katrina spun out into the Gulf of Mexico, water temperatures were extremely high, 87 degrees Fahrenheit. The warmer waters exacerbated the intensity of Katrina, becoming a Category 5 storm on August 28th. By the next morning, it had weakened to a Category 3 before hitting New Orleans, which was still capable of causing substantial damage. Here is why we see why increasing ocean surface temperatures and sea level, caused by climate change, have had such a great effect on the increasing intensity of hurricanes. But it is not so simple to say that these factors of climate change are directly affecting the intensity of hurricanes.
The link between climate change and the intensity of hurricanes is still under question. We spoke with Marty Coniglio, a meteorologist from 9 News, to explore the evidence for and against this relationship.
Yes, warmer sea surface temperatures give you more atmospheric water vapor, which gives you more potential energy. The other side of that coin is, is that if we take global climate change as a given, which things are warmer than they were 150 years ago at the end of the Little Ice Age, so we have to take that as a given. If this is happening, and it is, I shouldn't say if it's happening, as it's happening, you have warmer, higher energy water surfaces. However, you also have the lower troposphere warming. Now, the troposphere is the part of the atmosphere where weather happens.
Right.
So from here to about 37,000 feet, depending on the time of year. When the troposphere warms, you have weaker lapse rates. When you have weaker lapse rates, you have weaker thunderstorms. So even though you might have more energy at the surface, it takes more energy to develop something. The other problem with just a nice, simple A plus B equals C argument is that in a true global warming scenario, as you heat up the atmosphere below, you will increase wind shear aloft. So what you have is when you want to have a big hurricane develop, you want very little speed and directional change in winds from the surface up to 18, 19, 20, 25,000 feet. You want as little as possible. Because if you have a lot of shear and strong winds aloft, they will quite literally tear the thing apart. So as you heat up the surface and heat up the water, you increase the wind shear and you tear storms up. So the same mechanism that can potentially make storms stronger will also potentially tear them apart before they can develop. So there's no easy, simple connection. When we talk about Katrina in 2005, as you recall, that was the new normal. This is going to happen all the time. We're going to have this, and we haven't had a major hurricane hit the United States since 2005. In 10 years, not one. So clearly that's not the case. So there's more to it. There aren't any simple answers. Sandy was a run-of-the-mill Category 1 hurricane chugging up the coast of the U.S. that was actually drawn on shore by a stronger winter storm system that was coming out of Canada. Again, if you're going to make the case that we're getting warmer and because of warmer conditions this storm is stronger, that would be opposite of what was. So a lot of times we're trying to make a link where just an amazing combination of events comes together. People don't generally think about something unless something affects them adversely. There's a lot of buzz around these when they happen because there are people who are environmentally sensitive who will immediately go to a climate change cause for that event and demand that it be reported as such, not realizing that you have to have objective data to be able to do that. So you'll find that the difference between now and 25 years ago is no one would even, it wouldn't even come up. It wasn't even part of the conversation. So now it is part of the conversation. More often than not, it's inappropriately part of the conversation because you're trying to prove something that's not provable because you can't take an individual meteorological event and say, oh, it was caused by this.
It seems easy to say that global warming was a direct factor in the intensity of Katrina. However, when we take a step back, it becomes clear that the issue is more complicated than that. Because climate change has to be studied over a long period of time, and we have only recently started to study global warming in relation to hurricanes, it will be many more years before scientists can draw any definite conclusions.